welcome back, guys. Today we're going to be talking about this red dot right here. So this, as you can see, is the Holosun, and here is the model. It's the HS507c X2 ACSS. So all that means is it's the basic, the 507, but with the ACSS reticle, which is the main selling point of this specific model. This is also the model that has the battery tray in the side, so you don't have to worry about removing the optic entirely to replace a battery, which means you don't have to re-zero this optic whenever you change the battery like you would on older models. So as you can see right here, the reticle, this is the biggest selling point of this optic and the reason why I bought it. So the reticle right here is this massive circle, which if you look right here, it is 250 MOA, so it's massive, and then the chevron is about 10 MOA, and I'll talk a little bit about the chevron here in a second. The chevron, to your eye, does look like this. Obviously, you have the big circle right there, and then you have the chevron, so the chevron is noticeable. On camera, it kind of looks like a dot. Just know that in real life, it's not a dot, it is a chevron. About the reticle itself, so I kind of have mixed feelings about it. I really like, and you can see this giant circle right here. Now, whenever you're holding it out at a distance, let me see if I can hold this out far enough. That's kind of about what you see. You only see the chevron, you don't see the circle. So if you're aiming, and again, this is about as far out from the camera as I can hold. So if you're aiming and you have a good grip, and this is all out here, you don't actually see, again, this is about full presentation, but the camera is about 6 inches in front of me. So you don't actually see the circle at all whenever you're aiming normally. So what that does for you, say whenever you present, this is basically for people who are not used to red dot sights or who don't get to train a lot with their pistol, and so red dot sights are kind of unnatural for them. This allows you to get a faster sight picture whenever you're aiming. So if you pull up and you present and you're like this and you see this, oh, well that means, whoop, I need to move the dot over. If you see this picture here, it means you need to move it over. If you see this right here, you know you're aiming too high, you need to bring it down. If you're here, you bring it too low. Versus if you just have a dot and you don't see the dot, you have no idea where that dot is or which direction you might need to adjust. And I've been using this reticle for a while, and before I had this one, I actually had just their standard single dot optic, and I will say I like this better than just the single dot because it is faster. Because any time where I don't get a perfect presentation, I can see that massive circle, and it just automatically tells your brain which way you need to adjust the pistol, so it is faster. Now, does it make a difference whenever you're just taking aim shots? No. But whenever you're, say, drawing from concealment or whatever, and say in a self-defense situation and you don't have time to, you know, find the perfect sight picture, you just have to get a quick sight picture, it does help you find your dot faster or the chevron faster. Not bad, not bad. Not happy about that one though. So my brother actually bought this optic as well, and that is his first time using a red dot, and he has shot my Glock whenever I had the standard Holosun on there that just had the single dot, and you could tell he didn't like the just the single dot because it was hard for him to find, it was hard for him to follow, it was just kind of unnatural, and most people are used to shooting iron sights on pistols, so it's kind of a learning curve. And I will say just dots in general on pistols, if you're used to shooting iron sights at all, it's going to take you a little bit to get used to. You will get used to it, and once you do, you're going to absolutely love it more than iron sights because it allows you to threat focus, which means you can aim and look at your threat at the target at the exact same time. You're not forced to focus on either the target, in which case you're going to have to flash sight, which means you're basically relying on muscle memory, which is not good, or you're focusing on your front sight picture or your front sight post, which means your target is going to be blurry, and that's not something that you do naturally. If someone's, say, trying to kill you, you're not just going to think, oh, well, let me focus on my front sight. That's what you should do to get a good, a good accurate shot, but realistically, most people probably aren't going to. So what a red dot allows you to do, again, is basically have your cake and eat it too. It allows you to aim while threat focusing, and that's the big deal. So, and this optic makes it even more natural to get used to shooting with a red dot. So this red dot here, if you never had a red dot on your pistol before, just buy this now. Review over. Buy this because it's going to help you shoot a red dot way better. Because whenever my brother, went to shooting this, he said, wow, like that was a huge drastic difference. That circle really helped him figure out where to hold. And eventually, if you get to the point where you want to, you can turn off this outer ring, which I'll talk about here in a little bit, and you can just have the chevron if you want to save battery life, so that's an option as well. But there's no real reason not to buy this, although I will say one of my complaints about this, using it, is I don't really like, and again, this is personal preference, I don't really like the chevron itself, because it's a 10 MOA reticle. And if you're not familiar with that, the standard dot, I believe, on the Holosun models, there's like 2 MOA, so it's a very precise aiming point. And whenever you have this large chevron, it kind of covers up a little bit of the target. It's not as bad as their EOTech kind of copy model, where you can switch between a dot, a little circle, or the circle with the dot. I don't like that model at all. I thought I would, because I love the EOTech reticle, but whenever you put it on a pistol, you realize pretty quick that EOTech circle covers up your target, and you can't see the target, really. It's too small. It almost looks like it's just a massive, 12, 15, 20 MOA dot, whatever the thing is. I don't know what the size is, but it looks like it just covers up. So it may as well just be a solid dot at that point, because anything it covers up, you can't see. So whenever you're trying to take precise shots with the EOTech reticle turned on the Holosun, you can't really see your target. So between all the reticles, I honestly wish the perfect one in my mind would be this massive circle here on the outside, but with a single 2 MOA dot in the middle. I don't really like the chevron. I understand in theory it has the infinite, aiming point with the top of the chevron. It can be uber precise with the top of that triangle, whatever you want to call it, the chevron. But the way I use red dots is I usually just put it on target, pull the trigger, and I'm fairly accurate by doing that. Whenever I try to hold everything just perfectly centered and everything, you notice the dot shaking a lot more, and that just makes you generally miss more, because most people are going to get psyched out in their own head, and they're probably going to pull a shot whenever they're trying to hold it perfectly centered. So what I like to do is really just use this whole entire reticle as a giant dot. And what I'll generally do is just hold the top of it. You can see the white triangle right there on the underneath side of the reticle. Right about there, that little white is where I hold. So it's basically right in the center of that chevron. I just use that as a big dot. And that works for me. You might like using the top of chevron. It is a more precise aiming point. That's fine. But that's really not a big selling point to me, because the reason they have this reticle is for range estimation, for range shooting, like 50, 25 yards, 100 yards, which to me is stupid. I don't understand why they did that. It's for a pistol. 99.999% of your shooting is going to be done between 0 and 25 yards. I understand if you have to take a shot at 100 yards, that's like, again, the 0.0001% chance of the time. And you have now a worse reticle for shooting up close in order to get a better reticle for shooting at distance, which to me, with a pistol, is stupid. Like for a rifle, yeah, that absolutely makes sense, because you might have to shoot at farther distances, and you're capable of shooting accurately farther distances. Most of the people I've ever seen shoot, they struggle at 50 yards to hit a target. So realistically, I don't see this reticle as being useful for that application. You're compromising a good reticle for up close in order to get a reticle that does a whole bunch of stuff out of distance that really a pistol isn't designed to do. So, rant over on that. Alright, something I forgot to go over is here's all the information here, so I should show you this is what you're actually going to see when aiming, because the circle is actually bigger than the screen, so you'll only see that big circle whenever you're aiming incorrectly, as you can see at the bottom left. And then here is your zeros, or your bullet compensation for different calibers. Again, I don't think this is useful for a pistol, because you don't really see any sort of advantage until you get to about 100 yards. The 25 yard and the 50 yard things are so tiny or minuscule of a difference that you're not really going to notice. And then on 45 ACP, like no, you're aiming above the reticle. That's just estimation. That's stupid. So again, I don't think this is useful for a pistol. For a rifle, sure, I would like this reticle, but I think they should have just put a dot. So here's more information there in case you're wondering, and here is any information that's on the front. So it has 12 brightness settings on there. The lowest 2 are NVG settings, and it does work under NVGs. I tested it, it works fine. It says the battery life on here is on setting 6, and the battery life, it kind of tells you a whole bunch of different things. On the box, see if I can find it on here. Yeah, there it is. All right, so on the box, it tells you 50,000 hour battery life at setting 6. So I'll tell you right now, setting 6 is not usable. I don't even understand why they have settings 3 through 6, because they're not usable at all. Setting 7 is the lowest you can turn it and still see it. And I just confirmed it just now walking around my house where it's pretty dark right now. And in a dark house that has no lights on around, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, if you ever walked around, like, it's dark enough where you can kind of see, but you can't really see details. Setting 7 is still not even bright enough at that. So as soon as you turn on your flashlight or a light in the house or any sort of, low light, that reticle disappears. So realistically, setting 7 through 12 is what makes it usable, and the lowest I would ever probably use it is setting 8, and that's going to be inside the house, probably with no flashlight on my gun. The moment you turn on a good flashlight like this TLR7A, the reticle at brightness 8 disappears. So realistically, if you have a light on your gun, and pretty much all the scenarios I can think of, you're going to have it on setting 9, 10, 11, or 12. Which basically means your battery life is going to be terrible. So what I keep mine on is setting 10. That's kind of a good middle of the road. It's a little too bright for inside, even with my with the flashlight on, that's about right. But if I don't have the flashlight on, it's a little too bright and kind of blooms a little bit and darker, like inside the house. But it's still usable if you're aiming correctly. And then whenever I go outside, unless I'm in just direct, really, really bright sunlight, I can still see the reticle well enough to use it. Now, at the range, I usually crank it up to 11 or 12 if it's sunlight, because you get a much better sight picture of the reticle itself. But it's still usable on setting 10 during the daytime in completely, like bright sunlight. So to the battery life. So on the box, they say 50,000 hours. Okay, great, dandy. On their settings, on the you can see here is their little manual. So on here they say, okay, with the circle and the chevron, it's 20,000 hours. So I don't understand where that came from. Maybe it's 20,000 hours on the brightest setting. I don't know. They don't say. But so that's kind of, they kind of argue with each other. So let's see here. So it's 2,500 hours with the chevron and circle, and I don't know what setting that's on. But that's more realistic to what this does. So it's kind of annoying to me that they advertise this. So 50,000 hours. Well, okay, fine. That's just with the chevron on basically the lowest setting you could put it on. I wish they would advertise realistic expectations for this thing. So the battery life is probably going to be my biggest complaint about this, other than the chevron reticle itself. I don't like that. I just wish it was a dot. And I'm sure they'll come out with a dot model eventually, and I'll buy it because I'm a sucker. But they should have just come out with a dot version by itself first. So a realistic battery life for this, and again, it uses 1632 little button batteries, so in case you need to know that. But about 2 to 3 months is what I have gotten out of it. Now, I leave this on manual mode, so I don't trust the, I guess, the solar mode, the auto mode, because whenever you're using it, as soon as you use it, it's going to be bright. As soon as you use this light, the reticle, as you can see, kind of disappears. It's much more visible, and then it disappears. But what this sensor at the top is sensing is the light that's above your gun. So it's sensing the light that's above your gun, not the light that's in front of your gun. And your reticle is looking in front, not up. So what that means is if it's bright in front of you, but not bright above you, you're not going to see your reticle, which makes this completely useless in my mind, because your gun should have a flashlight on it. And whatever your flashlight is going to be looking at is going to be brighter than probably what's above you if you're using a flashlight. So I don't like that. I use manual mode, and on manual mode, I leave it on 10. And with that setting, it also has a couple, I'm not going to show you, but you can set the auto off feature on here, which it is a shake awake model. So after 10 minutes or 3 hours or whatever you set it to, it'll turn itself off, and then as soon as you touch it at all, the reticle turns back on. So that does save battery life, so that's good. So with it on manual, with it having it turn off after 10 minutes of not being used, of sitting perfectly still, I get about 2 to 3 months worth of life out of this. Now I do keep it somewhere to where it gets, you know, people walk by it a lot, which probably shakes the floor, and it might shake it on. I don't know. It's in a high traffic area, so that very well could be. It might last longer if you keep it somewhere where people don't walk around all the time. But it's a concealed carry gun, so I have it on me a lot. So most of the time it's staying on. So again, lasts about 2 to 3 months, is realistic in the manual mode, and I leave it on setting 10. So that just gives you an idea. So don't expect this thing to last years before you have to change a battery. You're going to want to change the battery if you use the full chevron and circle reticle. Go ahead and change out your batteries after every 2 months, because 3 months is when it started dying, and I don't know how long before that, because I was gone for about a week and I wasn't using that gun specifically. So it may have been slowly dying before that, and I just didn't notice, because the reticle will blink whenever the battery's getting low. Now it will go into the solar mode whenever that happens, so that's good. And I noticed, that's when I first noticed it. I was like, oh, that's weird, it's blinking. I didn't think anything of it, and I went back, and then my reticle was auto adjusting itself. So it's nice having a backup, but that's what I look at the solar as, is a backup only to if your reticle dies. I wouldn't use that as an actual option. So that's nice. But one thing I noticed is you have to have a battery inserted into it in order for the solar to work. So if you take the battery out, the reticle won't work at all. So, which I thought was kind of weird. I don't know if it completes a circuit or what it does, but just know you have to have a battery, even if it's dead, in the optic for the solar to work. All right, one of the last few things I'll mention is this is an open sight, which means the little projector is down here, and then it projects onto that lens, which then reflects it back into your eye. So what that means is you can get crud on this lens, and you can get crud on the other side on this lens, and it's kind of hard to clean it off. And you can also get crud, belly button lint, whatever it is, mud, dirt, on the projector itself, on the emitter, which will block it completely. So the advantage to having an enclosed emitter on some of their other models that are fully enclosed, you can just kind of wipe off the outer lenses on both sides, and it's easy to clean off. With this, and this is what's true with all the designs are like this, the RMR is the same way. You're going to want to take like a Q-tip, you know, just a dry Q-tip or something every now and then to kind of clean off all the belly button lint if you can still carry it a lot. Because after about, I would say, a week worth of carry, you'll notice a little bit of just kind of fuzz building up on the lens, which under brighter settings will kind of make the entire reticle bloom, and it's not as clear, and so that kind of, it just looks like a big, you know, red light shining at you instead of a reticle. You can still use it when it's dirty, but it just makes it harder to use at brighter settings. So just clean your optic every now and then. It's not a big deal. All right, the last thing I'm going to go over is how to switch between all the reticles. In order to switch between the reticle for the circle dot or just the dot or the chevron, is you just hold the minus button for 3 seconds and it'll switch to 1, and then you hold it down for 3 seconds again, it'll switch back. So that's pretty easy. Here is all the directions. I will just hold this on here. I'm not going to read all this, but some people are going to want to know, so you can pause the video on these things, read it all you want. Hopefully this helps, because it's hard finding manuals online sometimes. So here's all that information, and here is all the zero setting. It does have little click adjustments for left and right. It's held 0 just fine. I don't have any problems with that. It's I believe 1 MOA at 100 yards. Yeah, it is, and which is plenty. It's a pistol. If you put this on a rifle, okay, fine. Comes with a little tool where you can adjust, or you can use a little tiny torque screw here to adjust or to take out the battery. So it comes with a warranty. There's a warranty there, so that's good and dandy. That's all the information. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Try to make this video as short as possible. I'll insert some videos or some footage of me shooting with this reticle. You won't be able to see the reticle itself, but I do shoot with this thing a lot. It's held up fine. For those of you who want to know, the base plate, if you have a Glock MOS, throw the base plate in the garbage because it's made out of pot metal. Buy one of these. It's a CHPWS, I believe, is the company. Let's see. C&H Precision Weapons. Yeah, CHPWS. Yeah, that's right. So it's the aluminum. It's an anodized aluminum base, essentially, and it's got little T-nuts, screws that kind of mount it to the bottom like post. And then the screws actually screw down into those posts that fit inside the aluminum housing. So there's no aluminum on steel, like the thread the threading from the steel screws isn't threading into aluminum, it's threading into steel, which is just basically embedded in the aluminum, which is significantly stronger than the Hot Wheels car pot metal that Glock makes their base plates out of. Now, I love Glocks. This is my, obviously, everyday carry gun. I'm a Glock fanboy, but I absolutely hate their base plates because they're made of just cheap metal that eventually will snap. And if you shoot your gun enough, that thing's going to snap in half. I don't understand why they don't make them out of quality metal and just charge a little bit more or sell them separately, but it is what it is. So anyways, if you guys have any questions, let me know. Appreciate y'all watching. Comment down below. Start an argument if you want. Argue with each other. I don't care. Just have fun. But anyways, have a good one.